Good evening, KZFR. Hope everyone is having a good night tonight. This is Right On Air. Right On Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by the ARC Studios in Chico, Oroville, and Paradise, putting your green philosophy towards a worthy cause. The ARC stores offer gently used clothing, furniture, antiques, collectibles, and more. All proceeds support local people and families with developmental disabilities. Open 7 days a week at 2020 Park Avenue in Chico, 2745 Oro Dam Boulevard in Orville, and in Paradise at 6640 Clark Road. More info at thearcstore.org. How's it going, Brandon?
It's going just fine. It's lovely to be back.
Yeah, it's been well, you were on the last show, weren't you? Yeah. Yeah, we had Jan Matthews on there. Thanks again, Jan, for being here. Well, this is Writing on Air, and Writing on Air is a show where we, I always like to say, we are the frame, you guys are the art, and you guys can submit to us short stories, poetry, flash fiction, anything really, and we will discuss it on here. It's not a rating system at all. It's very casual. We just like to have writing on air.
Yeah, we just want to hear what you guys write. So submit, please, at write.onair@gmail.com.
WRITE.onair@gmail.com. And we have a Facebook page, YouTube page as well, which I upload pretty regularly after the show. He's laughing because I always forget, usually multiple days to upload.
If you guys really want to listen to an archived one, go to kzfr.org because it will probably be there
sooner than
possibly
than
a
YouTube.
week before it ends up on the YouTube channel.
Yes, I am very sluggish, but yeah, you can submit, and please do. I think we're gonna jump right into these because we have quite a few pieces, not quite a few pieces, I should say, but some longer pieces today.
Yes.
And some rather unique ones. No poetry, as far as I can tell. Let me double check these. We never really super thoroughly vet these beforehand. We kind of like to appreciate the art as you guys are appreciating it, so we don't actually read through these really heavily beforehand. That way we aren't, coming at it from a different perspective than you guys. Yeah. So this first piece is actually a submission from my father, surprisingly enough, Michael Cook, and it's called For the Love of My Father. It's going to be a pretty intense one, and I guess I'll have some background for you guys afterwards. So let's get right into it. For the love of my father. One warm day in October, I was at my parents' house. I had stopped by to see my mom and dad after visiting with them for an hour or more. My dad asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. He had something to ask me. He asked me about my job. What did I do? How was it going? And if I ever had to pronounce any person deceased. I went on to tell him yes, and then what I have to do, and to do that. I also told him I had to go. This is a weird conversation. Didn't really want to be here. Why are you asking me? He went on to tell me he always had a fear that he would be pronounced and not be gone. At that time, he went on to say he had gone to the doctors and everything was fine, but when that time came, would I be the one to pronounce him? I said okay, as long as we could put this off for 30 to 40 years, and we laughed, and he said okay. 2 months later, the doctor told my father he had a 4-inch tumor on his pancreas and a 2-inch tumor on his liver. Cancer. We were told October 31st and November 12th at 1:57 p.m. That's when my father was, or when everyone was away from my dad. Mom asked me to stay with Dad while she used the restroom. My brothers and sister doing errands for my mom. The Lord called him home, November 12th, 1:57 p.m. I had the privilege of doing what my father asked me to do. In my life, I have never had to do anything that hard, but for the love of my father. Whew. What are you thinking, Brennan?
That is probably one of the, just like he says, I think that is one of the hardest things that anyone could ever have to do.
It's, this piece was obviously submitted by a relative from me. And I was, present during this whole situation, so I know a lot of the backstory. My grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, and then 12 days later, pretty much, or right around 12 days, he had passed away. And my dad was the one to pronounce him dead. And so this is a different side that I get to see, this whole situation come out in writing. There's details here that I didn't know about, but to pull out of that so that way I'm not coming from just a personal perspective, but more of the radio show host perspective. This is a really intense piece.
Yeah, like I was there a couple days before my grandfather passed from cancer, and I raced back after the fact, but I was not there for the actual pronouncement. I can't imagine being the one to actually do it.
Yeah.
Especially after being asked to be the one.
Yeah. And I mean, even stylistically for this, I think it has some really like tugs on your heartstrings, because the first conversation is, hey, you know, I think I'm fine. It's no big deal. But, you know, I think you should be the one to pronounce me dead. And then just days later.
Yeah, at the very beginning, this is conversational. It's a little bit, you know, can we put this off for 30, 40 years? You know,
Yeah.
it's a little bit jokey, you know. But then it gets real hard real fast.
Yeah. I think anyone who's ever had a loved one die really knows how this feels, especially if it's a parent. I think that's a special kind of suffering, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dad. There's not too much more I want to dive into on this one. It just brings back a lot of memories, but it's a very good piece. Thank you for submitting. Whew. All right. Well, the next pieces we have are both by Lillie, I believe. This next one is called Childhood. The pieces, we usually try to fit like themes and stuff like that, but these ones are pretty eclectic, I would say, for this one. Pretty spread out. So 3 standalone pieces were submitted. So this next piece is Childhood, and we'll go ahead and dive right into that one. As soon as I find where the correct music is, because it's apparently deleting itself. Here we go. Childhood. A tan house bound in chain link. Windows, glassy barricades. Our childhood fruit trees, the ones you could climb, I always fell. Sunshine causing freckles of stars, scattering into the nooks and crannies of our skin. The garden, intricate, delicate flowers hailing the sky. I loved the purple roses. I thought the white ones were boring. I stepped on their thorns, yanked them from their tender skin. Crimson oozed out. Blood, my least favorite colored rose. The house was packaged in a fence. Childhood as wide as the yard, as tall as the heavens. I saw them kiss once, in the shadows, skirting the hallway. His mustache intermingled, tickled, became a part of her upper lip. Ew, you said. Ew, I said. The glassy windows were magical. They didn't let the sunlight in. It was dark inside the house. A whimsy of silhouettes and secrets, undulating just underneath the demons that were my friends, until you started pulling your hair out. I saw your bald spots. I didn't like them. I was scared of the monsters. My best friends were stuffed animals, and we all would curl up, clutch our heads, cover our ears until we didn't have to hear them yelling. And when we plugged our noses, even the smell of rotting love could dissipate, and I would melt away into the Amazon, the Sahara, into far away. Into the imaginary worlds where I could fly, where the flowers were always purple and violet and pink and blue, and they were never blood red. I would laugh and dance and sing. That room and I left you there, and I left you alone there. That room juxtaposed the rest of the house. She said it's full of evil. His secrets and sins lathered on the walls, toxic enough to poison the air, to poison me. She said, don't go in there. And my hands clenched my pink striped hula hoop. And I go in, and I tell him stories and sing to him, and he always listened. Eyes, glassy barricades that were magical. They didn't let light in. He called me Sugar Plum and told me stories. He said he loves me. She cried, and only you could hug her. A trammeled soul older than a boy. Only a boy. And you said it was full of evil. You said don't go in there. You were taller than me, older, and I knew you cried alone at night, to the plastic stars glued on the ceiling, and I stopped going in there. I sat alone in my room instead. Violet wisps of angry sound, ululate, crashing and banging. Everything was breaking. I closed my eyes into a wrinkled face, and I thought about all the places I see on TV. I thought of worlds and magical powers of love and happiness. I left you alone again. For Bong Pura, always strong, always my savior. Thanks. Whew. Thoughts, Brennan?
This is two sides of a very odd childhood, because I love this beginning of honestly looking at the world through childlike eyes. There's that line in there about childhood as wide as the yard but as tall as the heavens, because we all had our homes, our yards, and that was our castle. And when we were young, our borders were our fences or wherever our parents told us we couldn't go beyond, but our dreams were as big as the sky, as tall as the clouds. But then you get this point in there where we start to get dark, and it sounds like this is not a happy home.
No, definitely not. There's like, it does such a wonderful job of looking at childhood through a child's eyes.
Yes.
This very innocent kind of lower perspective, I would say, and not lower necessarily as in like a baser, like lesser view, but just literally a lower functioning mental capacity.
Honestly, more innocent.
More innocent.
Less experienced. And I love the way it's written, but it makes me so sad to hear a child go through this, because it sounds like something in the home is wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's parents fighting. I don't know if the bald patches are saying that someone's going through cancer. I don't know, but it's sad to hear about a child trying to curl up with their stuffed animals and close out the sounds and the smell and the world.
Melt away into the Amazon,
Yeah.
Sahara. Yeah, it's a story of escape. I mean, what we're seeing here is this child's coping.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there's two parts that really stand out to me, I'll say. Childhood is wide as the yard, as tall as the heavens. First off, I just love that. That alone is just so potent. Oh man, as wide as the yard, as tall as the heavens. Like, we might be bound in this little area, but creativity has no limits, pretty much. And the second part is, we didn't have to hear them yelling, and when we plugged our noses, even the smell of rotting love could dissipate. I think that is extraordinarily telling to what's going on. There's some sort of disconnect between probably parents, I would imagine. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. And that one just hurts.
Yeah, and if it is that, it brings a whole new light to other parts of that, saying, don't go in that room, it's evil. And it sounds like it might be the father.
And I love later, too, it says, she cried and only you could hug her. This is talking about three people, I think, here. So it's the perspective of the first child speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then she, I'm pretty sure, is looking at possibly a sibling, saying only you could hug her, possibly a mother. As in, like, you're the older child, maybe you're the only one who can take care of our mother. I can't do it because you told me not to go there. A trammeled soul, older than a boy, only a boy. That's speaking about a sibling. And you even said it was, you said it was full of evil. You said don't go in there. So there's a protection, a sibling protection going on. Oh, it's painful.
It's painful and deep, and I love the perspective it's written from, but at the same time, it makes me sad to hear a child speak those words, because this sounds like a child talking to me.
Yeah, and I mean, there's three parts actually. I'm trying to go through really quickly and skim them. And I left you alone there, and let me find the other one. I left you alone again. I thought I just saw a third one, but I guess I missed it. There's repetition there for a reason, though. And I want to say that's talking about the siblings situation again. I left you alone to take care of the adults, or to take care of the problems, while I went off into my escapes.
Yeah.
My own place. And that's, that is potent. I'm also guessing, so the reason why I'm saying it's probably about a sibling and stuff is because at the end it says, for Bong Pura, always strong, always my savior, thanks. And I tried looking up Bong Pura, and I definitely couldn't find anything on it. So I'm guessing that is some sort of name of endearment to someone. Always strong, always my savior, thanks. This is a thank you and an apology, I think.
Yeah,
in some ways.
Sounds like it might be.
Very good piece. Thank you, Lillie, for that one. And I guess the next one by her, well, not I guess, I know for a fact, the next one by her is by her as well. And this one is called A Coin Buried in the Sand. So we'll dive right into that one too. Growing up, my favorite author was C.S. Lewis, without a doubt. I loved the Chronicles of Narnia, was captivated by the Screwtape Letters, and found immense satisfaction anytime I was able to understand anything the man had to say in mere Christianity. You see, I didn't believe in secular things. Other people my age had Avatar: The Last Airbender, stayed up late in the ghastly blue light of secular shows like Barney or Rugrats. I had VeggieTales. My favorite movies were End of the Spear or Faith Like Potatoes in high school. Evolution? An absolute lie. I believed in creation research institutes, God-oriented research. Visited the museum not once, but twice. I used to ditch school, after all, education is an idol, and feed the homeless with my church family. I was captivated by the idea of living my life for God and dying in His name. It was the only thing I dreamed for, the only thing I wanted. Other seniors in high school prepped for colleges and SATs and ACTs and any other form of test a kid might have to endure. Me? I sat up for long hours with the pastor of my small little church. We talked of missionary work abroad, in the most dangerous places in the world. Let me tell you something about me. In high school, I wanted to be the Apostle Paul. I wanted to live brilliantly for God, die violently for Him, and never know what old age or even middle age was. I didn't need kids. I didn't need a spouse. I didn't need external love. I had Him. Imagine what it felt like when I no longer had Him. Imagine waking up with a vagina where your dick used to be. Imagine waking up to a world without gravity. Imagine actually realizing your best friend, your lover, your God is nothing. Imagine being too scared to tell your community, your friends. Imagine not having an identity. I didn't understand the secular world. Every breath I took, I swore it would be for Him. Now every breath I take has no meaning, no intention, no impact. I felt like the hero of an epic story that realized there wasn't a greater evil at all, that it was all in his or her head, and suddenly they have no quest or grand mission. Suddenly I needed to be sent to an asylum because I had been living an insane lie. I was never ready to feel so empty, to be so alone. I still remember the last intimate prayer I had with Him. I was at a Christian camp with the girls I mentored. I was desperately losing my faith, but I had hot glued a fraudulent religious girl mask over my rotting flesh. I went to the beach. I lay in the sand. I bowed before Him, imagined being before His feet, not worthy to be any closer to any other part of Him. I worshipped Him. The roaring waves crashed in the background as my personal crisis unfolded. God, I screamed to the empty beach, my voice carried away in the wind. God, I've always never asked for more than just You, but Your servant is doubtful and sinful. Show me, teach me, love me. Give me a sign that You're real. Give me one, and I'll live every moment that I have with no more doubt. I need You to prove this to me. Was I not good enough? He was willing to take the chance on Apostle Paul, on King David, on Mary Magdalene. He placed such great faith in Noah, Abraham, Isaac. Why can't I mean that much to Him? If He loves us all equally, I deserved a moment of questioning. The church always encouraged me to communicate with Him. I wasn't going to run away anymore. Now, to take a step back, and I've done a lot of weird things because of religion. Ask me about what it's like to exorcise demons. I have stories. Ask me what it feels like to lose your mind and become numb in a state of worship. It probably feels like drugs, actually. But ask me. You'll have to hear everything, the good, the bad, the wonderful. Religion is a cultist and a poison that pollutes the mind, spreading until only you can be a puppet of the image it asks you to become. But being a puppet was exhilarating. Being secular is nothing in comparison to being religious. Like a meth addict looking for his next hit, when I'm alone, my mind lingers on that space. I want nothing more than for somebody to tell me that I matter and they care. I want to be enslaved by an idea until I am not me, eternal love at the sacrifice of the self. It's not as bad as a deal as you might think. But I can't. I just can't. and I couldn't. The girls I mentored back then would come to me with scarred wrists, teary eyes. One was sent to gay camp. One was starving herself. One was kicked out of a religious school for lewd behavior. One tried to kill herself. In it all, I served him, but when his words say suicide is wrong, when his words tell us that she can't be a he, when he insists she can't love her, in the face of the archaic tendencies of my faith, I became desperate, insane. So I sobbed into the sand. If I was going to be irrational and old-fashioned, God had better give me some good evidence of something. I needed a miracle. They always talk about miracles in church. They. Define they. They. Pronoun. Used to refer to two or more people or things previously mentioned or easily identified. 2. Used to refer to a person or unspecified gender. Guest speakers had miracles. They were mothers who had nearly lost children. They were individuals with near-death experiences. They tried to kill themselves but were heroically rescued by God. They were addicted to drugs, but He saved them. They were penniless. What about me? We didn't have a lot of money. My family life was complicated. Maybe it just wasn't bad enough for Him to care. The last words I will ever say to God were spoken in a whisper into the sand. I've always loved you, Father. Show me your love too. Maybe they were buried in the sand. Maybe God is hard of hearing. Maybe I'm alone after all. Back then I wouldn't cuss. Now I have an improved vocabulary to describe the pain. Screw you. With deep love comes deep hate. I just had to flip the coin. Whew. All right, Brennan, what do you got?
It's a story about someone losing everything they believed in. About
losing your faith?
I was going to say, it's like pulling the foundation out from under a house.
Yeah.
It's going to collapse, and you have to start somewhere to rebuild. You have to start by laying a cornerstone, and this is about someone losing everything they grounded reality in.
Oh man, I mean, I don't know. You're correct. I don't even know what to add on to this. It's a story of a losing of faith, and it's a slow and very painful process, I would say. This one dealt with, she. Oh man, I'm at a loss for words. It's just so good.
She describes it perfectly. She starts with how fervently she believed, how much she loved God, how much she wanted to serve God, and then she really makes you try to understand what it's like in a way to go blind.
Yeah.
Because everything she thought that was true, everything she believed in, she then found false.
Yep. And I mean, there's
and this was not like an early life thing. She's talking about, planning missionary work after high school, dying young, in the service of God, and then she's talking about losing that.
Yeah, I almost would say that a young loss of faith maybe might be easier to take than one that it's been ingrained in your reality for years and years and years.
Well, especially if you're planning your life around it. There are many people that believe heavily in God, but they don't choose to work for God. They leave normal lives. They still plan for college. They still plan to get a normal job. This was someone that was planning on basing their entire life out of their service to God.
Yeah. There's a part, I guess, where you would call the line in the sand, I guess. But when his words say suicide is wrong, when his words tell us that she can't be a he, when he insists she can't love her, in the face of the archaic tendencies of my faith, I became desperate and insane. It's like the breaking, so I sobbed into the sand.
I think the line in the sand, the final straw, was previous to that, where she was asking for her moment of questioning, for God to give her a sign, stating, you gave a sign when all of these other people question you. I've read it. It's in the Bible. And if you love us all equally, then why can't I get something?
Why not me?
Just give me one thing to stop the doubt that has risen in my soul. And when she didn't find it, that broke her.
From friends who I've had who've gone through these experiences, it seems like they all kind of follow the same tendency of, can you give me a sign? Can you do something for me? I'm losing this faith. I can't maintain it. I need more than this. And then the next step after that is, well, there's reasons why I can't maintain this, and I'm not seeing anything substantial. I can't do this anymore. And it becomes overwhelmingly difficult for the people in that situation. They cannot cope with it. And the result is a loss of their identity, a loss of their faith.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to rebuild from that, because this sounds like someone whose entire being was built on the foundation of their faith. And to lose that, they had no future plans. They had no. They worked at church camps. It doesn't sound like they had much of an identity outside of their faith.
Yeah. The very end is the last words I will ever say to God were spoken in a whisper into the sand. Maybe they were buried in the sand. Maybe God is hard of hearing. Maybe I'm alone after all. And the very last part is, with deep love comes deep hate. I just had to flip the coin. There is almost a betrayal in the end at that very last part, where it was the last, like the flame flickers out and there's nothing left, and it's just, screw you. I can't do this. This is, my identity is gone. I've lost, and you're no longer hearing me. So if you are here, I'm done. And it's such a sigh. It's just at the very end of this piece.
I'm not sure if it's a sigh, more as just an utter breaking collapse.
An end.
Yeah.
An end, and maybe, hopefully, a beginning, I guess. Some way to look at it in a positive light. Well, oh man, I just looked at the time, and we are almost out. Thank you so much for the people who have submitted. There was my father who submitted the very heavy piece about pronouncing his father dead. My grandfather, for those of you who put those two and two together. And then two pieces from Lillie. One of childhood and one of also growing up in a way, maybe, or changing in some sense. Whew, thank you all so much for listening. Sorry to leave you guys on such a intense note, but these were some pretty intense pieces tonight, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's always good to kind of level with yourself and hear those parts that are difficult to hear. Mm-hmm. As always, this is Writing on Air, and you can submit to us if you want to be on the show. You can help read and interpret pieces if you want, or anything really. We enjoy having you. We want you on here, so please do so. You can submit at write.onair@gmail.com.
That is WRITE.onair@gmail.com.
And thank you all for tuning in. Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Harrison Daily Wright Accountancy Corporation in Chico. Harrison Daily Wright provides certified public accountants specializing in accounting and bookkeeping services, auditing, tax prep and planning, management support, services for nonprofit organizations, and more. To reach Harrison Daily Wright, call 895-1209. This is FM 90.1 KZFR Chico, listener-supported community radio for the Sacramento Valley, the foothills, and beyond. Have a good night, everyone.